suspects. Let's quickly go around the room and introduce.
Oh, okay.
Oh, by the way, Marcia's doing some fantastic graphic art on some of the materials.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can pass it out if people want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a graphic artist and a music teacher, and I'm married to this guy. He's a spiritual type person, known Gerald for a long time. Opera singer too.
That's only about 10% of it.
Oh, I don't know. That's enough, isn't it? For
No, it's not enough.
healer, somewhat.
Okay.
Bernie Heisch, married to her, a master physicist, interested in these sorts of things too, oddly enough for an astrophysicist, and known Gerald for probably 20 years.
Maybe longer now.
Maybe longer.
It's been 20 years for 20 years. No, I don't know how long. It's probably,
About 20 years is about right, I think.
you think so?
Yeah.
Because, wait a minute, it had to be between 94 and 97 when I was the executive director of the Mind Biggin Foundation.
But that would be less than 20.
You're right? Yeah, so before then, around that, right?
Liz Smith, I can't say anything really impressive like that. I can say I'm a Kabbalistic alchemist.
She can, and a certified one.
Well, you haven't given me a certification.
I'm waiting for one of our artistic friends to design a diploma. Hint?
What, a diploma? I can do a diploma.
Yeah, because she's been, how many mixings and stuff you've done?
I think 5.
Yeah, it qualifies as a master alchemist.
I had a dream where I was being followed by a salamander, and then I looked in, I googled salamander to see what that was a symbol for, and it's a familiar for an alchemist.
Yeah.
I figure my dream, yeah, so I got the familiar too.
Did anybody see the New York Times science page this week?
No.
Oh, you have to go online and see it. It's the front page was rediscovering the really good science behind Newtonian alchemy. And Newton spent more than half his time on alchemy, and how scientific he was based on the science of the time.
Yeah.
And how rigid he was, and rigorous.
He spent more time in economic physics.
Yeah. Yeah. And he wasn't a nice person, turns out.
He wasn't?
Yeah, he worked for the king, and if somebody was a charlatan with the alchemy, that there wasn't science behind their alchemy, he would have them put to death.
Oh my.
You didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Who is that?
That's good.
I'm Paul McManowski Beaver. I'm married to Dina here, and we are starting a new business, and so we're excited about that.
What's the business you told me?
Yeah, no, good.
We're working on it right now, so we'll let you know.
Okay.
And I have an appointment with you tomorrow at 10, so.
The reason was a couple of minutes late, I had to get Angel's medicine in because he's having dental surgery tomorrow.
Oh,
And they're gonna
what time?
anesthesia. He's gonna have it at 2. And I'm gonna drop him off before I see you. So I'll be back in time. Steven?
Name is Dean. I don't know if I categorize myself as a professional visionary and an academic scientist. It's be the third business that I've been involved with and owned, as well as done various different things in arts, photography, and healing.
Liz King, massage therapist, Los Angeles.
And you had a scientific background also?
Yeah, microbiology and biology.
Greg Ellis, so far I'm the red-headed stepchild of the group. I'm a Silicon Valley engineer, and don't have much to do with professional involvement with healing or more electronics. And I'm just here to see what I can learn. And maybe at the end of the evening I'll remember how to spell cables.
Maybe because it actually spelled many different ways, because it's It's just a transliteration. And I'll go
I
over it.
noticed that when
Yeah.
I was naming the Sephira, I saw many different spellings.
Yeah, usually what happened, the K is usually Jewish mysticism, the Q is usually occultism, which is a different type of Kabbalah, because the way that Kabbalists would work, they assumed you knew certain things. And so the only people that got to sit in the sessions were people that knew certain things, so everything was alluded to. And so people didn't know what they were talking about, get it backwards. One of them is the way the tree works. You see in a lot of Kabbalistic occultism, they get the rights and lefts mixed up. If you look at some of the old texts, it's actually backwards. And we always wondered if they did it purposely that way, to confuse people. Not the Jewish Kabbalists, because you had to master certain things before they let you in, and so they assumed you knew certain things. So people that didn't have that background wouldn't really know necessarily what they're talking about. You get it backwards. Michael?
My name is Michael Bachmann. I'm a biomedical researcher, and I don't know certain things.
I'm not so sure about that. But certain things, that's it. And you know?
My name is Barbara
We have a lot in
Green.
common.
Yeah, exactly.
We have a lot in common.
I am a friend of Michael's, and he gave me the choice of meeting him before class or after class, and I thought it'd be wonderful to come and join you.
Thanks for coming. Is Jonah coming? Did you meet him?
He was trying to, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Justin Ahmad. That's about it, yeah. Interesting. Learned the Kabbalah. It's my first class, actually third class now. Right?
Yeah.
First year, I missed last week's. So,
Now you're going to be completely confused.
yeah.
No, I'll go over
She
it.
did her best to explain it to me though, but yeah.
Christine, artist, and I also work in the holistic industry.
You've done mixings,
I have been
so you get a diploma
Do
too
I
if
get a
you.
diploma too?
What's a mixing?
That's really great.
The Kabbalists, the origin of homeopathy was based on Kabbalah. So the Kabbalists were at midnight around there mixing medicines while in a certain state of consciousness, and the real idea was in Jewish tradition that since the Jews were removed from Israel or Judea, they were in exile, and so part of Jewish tradition was one day you would return to Jerusalem. But the Kabbalists maintained that that was symbolic, that we were really in exile from where we came from. And it wasn't really have to do with the land of Israel. It meant that we had come here to have certain there were spiritual beings that hijacked the physical world to have very precise experiences, and that we became confused and we thought that we are the experience. And that when you start understanding that concept, you start understanding the origin of Christianity, and you start understanding the relationship of the Therapeutae, which was a sect in the time of Jesus. And so they said that the basis of returning from exile, which is similar to the Buddhist idea that we keep coming back thinking we'll get it better, was learning how to communicate again, or reconnecting with our origin. And what really happened here was not that important. And when you see that in that context, when Jesus said, render to Caesar what is Caesar, and render to God what is God, that he meant that this isn't where it really counts. And that would be part of Therapeutae teachings, which, if you remember when Christianity came about, there was a historian in Alexander who was the historian of those ages, Philo. Everybody heard of Philo?
Yeah.
And Philo wrote extensively about everything that happened, and he never mentioned Jesus or anything like that. But he did mention a sect up the Nile that was a Jewish sect called the Therapeutae, And when you read the book of Q, which was, some people think the original meaning of the Gospels, was scientifically done in Germany, I think in the 1800s, they feel that it was consistent with the Therapeutite teachings, which are predates the modern Kabbalists. And the Therapeutite lived in an area where they were monastic, and that each member stayed in their cells throughout the week for 6 days in isolation, and on the Sabbath they came out. And then Philo wrote about them. And then when you start reading the New Testament in that context, it starts making more sense of what they were really talking about, that we were all in exile because we think this is what's real. Okay?
You mean it's not real?
Bernie can tell you better than I can.
Well, look at me.
Physics has a different way of looking at things. So I'm going to review quickly for those that don't have any background. Remember, I don't expect anybody to know this stuff. Just to understand what Kabbalah means. Kabbalah means to receive information. The scientific method was used by the Kabbalists in that different groups of Kabbalists would have to receive the same information without any contact with each other before it would be accepted as doctrine. So it had to be independently received. And so they felt they were receiving this information from another source, and most of it never got written down. The first Kabbalistic text that we know about is the 2nd century, the Book of Formation, the Sefer Yetzirah, and the tradition says it goes back to Abraham. But historically, it was traced back to the 2nd century. Okay? So the idea was that how does something manifest? Why does it manifest? And this is just review. This is not the 4 worlds of Kabbalistic healing. This is how something descends and an intention becomes manifest in the physical. So this is in a sense, the pattern of creation according to God's intention and how it will descend. And it goes through 4 worlds. This would be the spiritual world. This is the roots. So I never want to make that mistake again. I used to teach this material at Esalen, and I had a student there who thought she understood the material and spent thousands of dollars making cards and things on the Tree of Life, and she put the roots down here in the physical, and the roots are up here in the spiritual. So I always make sure we don't make that mistake again. And I asked her why she didn't proof it with me, and she didn't know why. But she had thousands of cards made up of her artwork that she was going to, greeting cards that were wrong, at least from Kabbalistic. So the idea is that we have an intention coming up here. This is the spiritual world. This is called the world of Atzilut, which has been translated as emanation. It has 3 dimensions of 3 sphirot. Before it becomes into the tree, there has to be a descending step-down process. What has traditionally been translated as infinity would be above the tree. That means similar to the Buddhist beginningless time, where everything comes from, and somewhere else, whereas the origin of everything is what's called the ayin, and we've gone over this and nobody's ever come up with a word that translates the ayin, except the concept is non-existence. And it's not nothing. It's something way beyond nothing. And so that's where all this comes from. And this has to come through the luminosity. And from the luminosity, you have what's called the clear light, or the pure light, in different traditions. that descends. There's a Kabbalistic tradition that this doesn't always go right, that the idea is that we have to go through the center and make it down to the physical to activate a potential experience. And a lot of times the descension goes too fast or gets diverted to the right and left, and I'll explain that briefly. And if it goes too fast, according to probably the greatest Kabbalist ever, that the vessels that carries the light shatters when it hits the bottom. And when it shatters, you can either be repaired, and they say the repair of the world is putting the vessels back together. And we talked about in the other classes about the origin of the word sin, which is a Greek concept, not a Jewish concept or a Semitic concept. And Kabbalistically, they use that word, and it means very different things than than in the Christian sense, because the word is chet, which means to miss the mark. And so what happens Kabbalistically when they talk about chet is the same thing that we talk about in hormonal therapy, that we become dysregulated and the body starts becoming dominant